know you've got some super special machines
Yeah.
here, including ones that have been made in the shed. Have you got something in there you want to show us?
Yeah, we can talk about some of these. This is a made in the Iron Factory machine.
Yeah.
I do a couple different builds in Paul's shed, and they're based off of Paul's machines. And I just put made in the Iron Factory on them.
Yeah.
And my penmanship is not very good, so I have drawn in CAD this script here, and I'll engrave the side of the machine, and that's something that's pretty cool. And it's a way to pay homage to Paul Rogers and what he gave us in machine building, and keep it going, you know, and keep the machine buzzing.
And this is where you've done it, Paul Rogers. This is a Paul Rogers design, obviously.
Yeah.
And you've kept the aspects, even the tube ice, similar to the original build.
Yes,
right?
yeah. And I don't want to create reproductions or anything. I don't want to flood the market with anything that could be misconstrued with what the real thing is, because there's no place for that. But honoring how Paul built machines and what kind of influence that had, and you look out on the floor here, and you kind of think about how people like Paul influence so much of what is now our life. And so you want to think about those things and really do your best to like honor those things. So and that's what I do with a lot of these. This is like a wild, I got like a wild hair.
We've seen this on teased for a few months.
Yeah, so this is something I came up with because I do hear a lot that people have, they have some joint issues, carpal tunnel, different things like that. And I really want tattooers to be able to keep using coil machines. Even if they use other machines, I want that to still be a relevant tool in the tattooer's box. So one thing I took in consideration here was making a lightweight machine. So I sent the yoke, which is also the chuck, up through the frame, and it doesn't actually touch, the coils don't touch the aluminum at all. The base is also the yoke. And I call it the boss because there's two bosses that go up through the frame, and that's what the coils sit on. And it screws on from underneath the coils, and it screws on from back here. And it's a press fit, so you press the steel into the aluminum, and it's perfect. And then your clip cord goes into a drilled out stainless steel screw here, which makes it so you don't have any hysteresis. So hysteresis would be caused from unlike metals. So you fight that by putting that screw in there. Yeah.
And so how far are we from seeing the boss available?
I feel that I'm like 95% there. There's a few little things I'm going to do to improve the sound. Aluminum is just a bastard when it comes to it doesn't like hold the sound, it bounces the sound. So it sounds good, but it doesn't sound good enough, and if it's not good enough, then I kind of hold on to them until they are. I've made a lot of the parts. It's ready, but there's a few little details, and once I work them out, and I know that like when I send those machines out, like they stay out, because I love them, but I kind of like want them to go out and then like not come back. You know, everything's nice and tight. I can really think about things on like a super micro level with how I draw and create in CAD. And like if you were to like look at how I create in CAD, you would see that I have like a whole library of hardware. I've really put a lot of time and effort into the development of how my CAD works, and how do you like harness using that technology and also the idea of hand making machines and put them together, you know? And I feel like I'm getting the hang of that finally, and we're starting to see some pretty cool stuff. So
this case is full of gems. So we've looked at a Rogers machine, we've got your new boss. I know you've got some other ones there from the Sailor Jerry.
Oh, right,
era,
yeah.
And which obviously has the Australian connection we talk about with Des Connolly and our minions.
Yes.
what's
So
going
this
on here?
this would be considered an Aussie frame. From all the letters I've read and the interaction with the actual design, Des Connolly would have corresponded with Sailor Jerry on this, and Sailor Jerry was playing with different geometries, and Des was a pattern maker. He was able to make what's known as a match plate, and a match plate is a board with two sides of patterns, okay? And sand is put into what's called a flask and pushed into that flask to create two sides of a mold that's called a sand cast mold. And those parts were made in Australia. And then
Ballarat, right? Is
yes,
where,
yes,
in Victoria.
yes. And that's where a lot of these frames came from. The bulldog, what we know as the bulldog. That's a name that came from Mike Malone, I've been told. And the Sailor Jerry just called them Aussie frames because they were from Australia. So, and I've heard Des was a true eccentric person, lots of skill and craft. And I believe that this style frame was one of the first bulldogs, and they just elaborated on it. And I have cast from the original match plate, and I can tell you that the original castings had problems. There was a lot of porosity that would happen in the chuck, and that was due to the gating and also the degradation of the actual pattern, because they were made with wood and like plaster.
Yeah.
And over the years that degrades, and
This is in the mid to late 70s.
Right.
We're talking about.
And when the thing about sand casting you got to remember is the patterns have to have a all vertical surfaces have to have some kind of draft, because when you jam that sand onto the pattern and you flip it, there's a cope side and a drag side, and you've got to pull that out of the sand without pulling the sand with it.
That's right.
So, based off of that and then degradation, it's kind of hard to get the pattern, the castings where you want them. So what I did was, this one is machined from a billet, and I spent months getting it to where it was as close to the casting as possible. I didn't machine draft into it, because you would have machined the draft off anyway, but aesthetically, they are as close to as you can get, and they're tumbled in media for hours to get nice radiuses on the corners. The only thing that's different about them is it's called as cast. It's the sand pattern, and when the iron goes into the sand, that's where you get that gritty look.
Yeah.
But this
We
is
got a
smooth.
nice smooth finish.
But this is a A36 material. It's the closest steel to iron that you can get. It's free machining. It doesn't hold on to the magnetism. It's just a really good material to use. Yeah. And then the armature bar and the coils are made from literally the same bars of material.
Yeah.
And I have them annealed.
So you have this magnetic.
I have a massive amount of this material because you have to buy a lot. And I keep that in the machine shop. And when I make the parts, that's what I use.
And these are in your billets. Is this how the seal?
No, the billet of the frame is different, and that's okay. But the armature bar and the coil cores are literally from the same place. They're annealed at the same time. They're the exact material. Yep. I take the springs and I stamp the back spring with a hole and then a blank, so I can modify it. And then I also stamp them with a hole and a slot in two different sizes, so I could send the end user a spring and they can modify it. And then the front springs, a lot of times I'll I'll surface grind them down. I take a lot of care in the springs, and when I shave them down, I use a surface grinder,
Yeah.
and it keeps the material cool, so you don't retemper the
Yeah. Otherwise you can make
and you'll be showcasing this soon, but
I can't wait.
I use Arkansas soapstone to deburr the spring, and we're going to offer those through your site and different tools. So as your end users and our end users start to want to learn more, they can get the tools, the appropriate tools.
Yeah. It takes time to get that right.
And the nice thing is you buy a good tool, it's a lifetime purchase. You know, as long as you don't lose it, keep it in a nice box, you got something that will last a lifetime. You know, and that's kind of cool.
Now I know there's a couple more special machines in here.
Oh, the single?
You have a single coil.
Yeah.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, this is like another like weird, like I got like a wild hair up my ass. I was trying to keep weight in mind, and I was just curious. A lot of people make single coil machines. I've like thought about it, and I taught myself Eagle, which is electronics software, so I can actually gauge exactly how strong this coil is going to be by giving it a design parameter, and I did that, and
Because you're talking about the number of wraps or
yeah,
height as well.
it's the amount of wraps versus the volume of core, and also the width.
So you've adjusted the core size.
And I have a CNC coil winder.
Because they're 12 or 14 wrap.
This is a 12 wrap, yeah.
12 wrap.
Yeah, 12 wrap, yeah. And I have the wire made by Essex.
You have so the wire's custom made to you.
Yeah, and so is the capacitor and the solder lugs. So I can control the outcome a lot better. It cycles really fast. It cycles fast, yeah.
It runs at 140 loaded or?
Yeah, about 130, 140 loaded. It's got plenty of power. As with all of my machines, I run it into silicone, into the pound of flesh. I use the pound of flesh to tune the machines.
Really?
Yeah, it works great. I put it through the ringer, man. Like very little heat at 10 hours. I had it running loaded at like 7.5 volts. You want to find a balance for it to cycle quickly and not hold on to any magnetics, like no permittivity. Every person, every tattooer just is going to be a little different, and I try to build that into what I make. But I know how I tattoo, and I try to keep that in the highest consideration, and I just kind of hope that everybody else, you know, can adjust it to their liking or however it goes. But you know, the most important thing for me is that they're usable for others. Yeah, for a long time. Yeah.
You know, there's a lot going on. I'm really excited about seeing these machines out, finding out what the artists feel like here in Australia when we start to bring them over. I'm stoked that we have the chance to sit down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We're traveling together at the moment, so we got a few more stops.
Yeah.
Lots of fun things.
Yeah, and we're gonna roll out some value-added content.
Yeah.
And that will be helpful too. So, yeah.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much. It's been
Thank
a
you.
really good
Yeah,
chat.
thank you. Yeah,
cheers.
awesome. Yeah, cool.